everyone. I always find webinars to be a little bit disconcerting because I can't tell if you're really out there listening or not. So I'll just assume that you all said hello back. So today, I'm really excited about this topic, moving beyond the SEO silo. I talk about this kind of thing a lot, and I think that more and more people are realizing that search engine optimization is really just a part of everything else that we do within an organization as opposed to a separate silo. And so I'm going to talk a bit about that today and particularly focus on how you can really better understand your audience, that you make sure that you're really solving their problems and motivating them to convert. So we'll go through that. As mentioned, I'm happy to take any of your questions. If you've ever listened to me do my podcast or other things like that, you'll know that I have a problem with being able to multitask, so I might not be able to read your questions and answer them as I'm going along, unfortunately, so we'll probably just reserve some time at the end for that. So let us get started. So when we think about how we think about our customers and then also think about, the product or service or content that we're offering. And I think this holds true no matter what type of organization, right? It could be everything from a company that sells actual products. It could be a media company. It could be a nonprofit that is looking to provide information. You kind of, in any type of organization, you have a tendency to turn things into silos. Right, and you sort of have to do things this way because you can't have a single person or department handle everything. But what ends up happening is that you have a person who deals with, say, search engine optimization, and so they're thinking of people who search. And then you might have someone who is managing or a department who's managing the paid search campaign, and so those people are looking at paid search information. And then you might have social media people who are managing that, and you're thinking of, okay, who are the people that interact, on social media, and on, right? Here you can see I've got, sort of the broadcast and TV billboard type thing, and then, we also have this set of people who might be on mobile devices and a set of people who read email, and, then you also have the people who buy, right? And you have a whole other set of people who deal with UX and conversion, and we sort of think about all of these different people as different people, when in reality, this is probably a single person, right? You have a person who checks email and who searches the web, and they're looking at unpaid results, and they're watching TV, and they have a mobile phone, right? But it's very difficult, I think, to integrate all of these different processes into this holistic sense that deals with that single person. Now, how you solve that is obviously very hard from an organizational standpoint. So what I'm going to focus on a bit is at least how search can be incorporated into all these various elements so that at least you can start to weave that in. So it may not solve all the problems of the world, but maybe can at least help you start to think about how to weave that element in. So, when I think about this, I sort of think about it this way. So I wrote this book, Marketing in the Age of Google, and when I wrote the first edition, I had this idea of this workflow, that started at the search box. So if you're thinking about what people are searching for, which helps you figure out what they want, and then figuring out how to engage with those searchers, get them to your site, and convert. But then, after I wrote the book and, I was talking to people and really working with a lot of organizations, I realized that this diagram, while still probably not perfect, is a little bit of a better way to represent it. And so when I wrote the second edition of the book, I incorporated all of this in there as well. So basically, I think it kind of breaks down right into these three areas, which is who is your audience, And this is where you have all these different ways of finding that out, right? You might be doing market research, various types of audience analysis, but one of those things is looking at what people search for, because obviously what they search for gives you a lot of insight into what they're interested in, and that's what we'll be diving into. And then we have where your audience is, right? So they might be searching, they might be on social media, they might be, in their car listening to a radio ad. There isn't necessarily one right answer in terms of is social the most important thing for me, is search the most important thing. It really depends where your audience really is. And then figuring out what it is that they want, right, and making sure that you're taking all of the data from all these different silos to build a really good audience profile, and then making sure that you're solving their problems. And from a pure search engine optimization perspective, if you do SEO or have been involved in it, there's a lot of different methodologies that people talk about in terms of search engine optimization. But what I always really stress to people is the very best thing you can do for search engine optimization is make sure that you're solving people's problems and that the way that you're solving them is better than anyone else out there, right? And that's really going to cut through a lot of it. That's what the search engines, when they're looking to rank pages, that's what they're looking to do. So all of their algorithms really boil down to that. And, obviously there's a lot of technical implications as well, since you want to make sure that the search engines can access that data. But certainly when you're looking at a content perspective, that's really the key. So hopefully this webinar will kind of help along those lines as well. So, what I really try to focus in on is then based on all of this set of data that we have out there, who are your customers, where are they, what is it that they want, how can you solve their problems? And then, of course, you have to think about, once you've gotten all of that, then you sort of think about yourself, right? And I always caution people not to think about themselves too early in this process, because you have a tendency then to try to solve your customers' problems with the way that you want to, as opposed to the way that they need to have them solved. So once you kind of figure out that flow, then, what are your business goals and what types of resources do you have available? Because obviously that's going to make a difference. Just because you've learned that this is a problem people have, you may not really best have those resources to solve it. So, thinking about that foundation, how can you really build on that and from a practical level, really execute on that? So first, let's take a quick step back and think about why I really care about search at all, right? Because search has been around for a long time, and there's all of this new shiny stuff out there, right? Social media, mobile, lots of great stuff. And so, is search even important anymore? Taking a look at it, even as all of these other things start to rise in popularity, the number of searches that people do also continues to rise. So it's not that these other things are replacing search, it's that they're augmenting search. And in some cases, they're facilitating search, right? So, for instance, as mobile devices become ubiquitous, we search more and more, right? Because we always have that search box with us, and no matter what we're doing, we're out in a store and we want to look up reviews for something we're looking at. We're at the bar and, we have an argument over, what actor was in a movie or whatever. We always have that there. So, as we start to do more and more with these other platforms, search just continues to grow. So not only does it mean that we should probably pay attention to search, but it means that more and more we have additional insight by looking at the data from search in terms of figuring out who our customers are and what they're looking for. So let's kind of break this down in terms of looking at some large brands that have paid a lot of money and kind of see what the evolution has been. And so, I'm always thinking about why are you engaging in this, whether it's search or some other type of advertising, what is your business goal? And so we'll kind of take a look at that from the Super Bowl. Every year I do this analysis of the Super Bowl ads, and you can go back and find all those articles on searchengineland.com. And I've been doing this since 2009. So this is, I guess, the 4th year that I've done it. And so it's interesting to see how things have evolved. So we'll just sort of quickly go through this. So 2009, this was sort of the first year that I thought that advertisers really did this huge push to try to integrate offline and online. So the great thing was that people were understanding that perhaps this is the same audience, right? The one who's watching the ads is the same one that's online. And so they started this attempt. But here's one example of what happened as part of that attempt to integrate the silos. So you have Hyundai. They did this website called Edit Your Own, and you can see that screenshot there. That's the end of the Super Bowl ad. They were advertising Edit Your Own. So an interesting thing happened, right, which was that Edit Your Own and edityourown.com, I'm not sure if you can see in this other screenshot since it's kind of small, but people typed that into a search box, right, instead of going to the site directly. So that's great, right, but I don't know that Hyundai expected that to happen. And so what happened was that if you looked at the search results for Edit Your Own, the Hyundai site didn't come up at all. And they did do a paid search ad, but they didn't label it with edityourown.com. They labeled it with the Hyundai main site, right? So there was a huge missed opportunity there in that they didn't think it through all of the way, right? Okay, we've got this audience and they're online, so they got that far, but then they didn't get all the way where, and these people might be searching for that information, and we need to make sure that we show up in search. So that was pretty representative of what was going on in 2009. Then in 2010, we had something similar happen. So Dockers did this ad, and they advertised dockers.com/free pants. And again, a very spiking search that day was that URL. So people, more and more were using the search box as their navigation, so that's where they're typing in URL. So here you see there's this big spike, dockers.com/free pants. If you look at the search results, the Dockers main site shows up, but the specific URL doesn't, because that was just like a vanity URL that didn't actually exist. And if you took a look, all the spammers were starting to say, hey, we can look at search volumes and search interest to see what people are looking for, and we can build these spam sites that do match what people are searching for. And so you see that there. There's actually a bunch of results that match that URL search exactly, but they're like all spam and affiliate sites as opposed to the brand that actually paid the money for that. So again, they kind of lost out. So 2011, this was the year that people tried to incorporate social media into their ads. And so they stopped advertising URLs, and they started trying to get people to go to, say, their Facebook page. And again, this is where people just didn't think through the steps all of the way. So here you have Sony, Xperia Play, join us on Facebook. That's all the ad says. So they've spent several $1 million to tell people to join us on Facebook. So, of course, the first problem is that not everyone has a Facebook account. That's probably less of a problem now. So this might happen for some people that tried to join them on Facebook. But even for people that did have a Facebook account, which let's say that's the majority of the audience they were trying to attract, if you did a search for Xperia Play, their fan page did not come up, right? All of these other, discussion pages, other pages, you couldn't actually find their official Xperia Play, page. And so, again, this is, an example where they got almost all of the way, but then they probably lost a lot of potential people at the end. All right, so then let's take a look at sort of this year. And what happened this year, which was interesting, is that people started advertising hashtags. So now people are saying, okay, we know that people are watching the game while they're talking on Twitter, so we want to really capitalize on that. And actually, a lot of brands did a great job. And I found it very interesting that as an advertiser would advertise a hashtag, that instantly became a trending discussion on Twitter. People actually started using the hashtag. So apparently you just tell people to do something in an ad, and they'll do it. And so you see that here. You can see the trends, make it platinum, so long, vampires. A few of these, backfired because people were talking about ads they didn't like, for instance, but it was interesting to see the phenomenon where this was actually working. So this is the idea, right, that, okay, people are on a computer, potentially a mobile phone, while they're watching the game. We want to do some interaction. But again, you have to think about how this might work. So let's look at GoDaddy. They typically do a great job of saying, hey, here's our ad of these sexy girls. Go to our website to see, the rest of the ad. But this year they decided to take it a step further and put a QR code on their ad. Now, I'm not sure what they were thinking would happen. If you scanned the QR code, it went to the homepage of their website. But, of course, the code only was on the screen for half a second. And so presumably people would have their mobile phone with the QR code reader at the ready, and as soon as they saw it, they were going to rush up to the TV and scan it. I'm not sure exactly what they thought would happen. But, again, this is people kind of almost got it, but I feel like it perhaps fell a little bit short. So we'll just take another quick look and then dive into some tactical stuff. So let's look at Chrysler because they had done a poor job, and then this year they really, I thought, did a much better job. So 2011, their ad, which was an M&M Detroit ad, was really popular. People talked about it a lot. This is the homepage of their site, which really resonated well with what the ad was. But if you looked at the paid search ad that they were advertising when people typed in the query and the organic results, they were actually advertising their YouTube video instead of their homepage. And this is just not as engaging of an experience as that homepage was. And if you go back to that idea of what's your business goal, it also doesn't really get people looking at the car. And so I thought this was sort of, they were trying to get sort of YouTube integrated, but it just sort of fell down at the end. But however, if you look at this year, the same kind of thing happened. They did another ad. This is the Clint Eastwood ad. It also was really popular. They still advertised their YouTube page, but this time they advertised the channel instead of the video, and it looked like this. So it was much more engaging and sort of funneled people into additional things about Chrysler instead of sending them off to these related videos that might be the competition. So this is what you really want to do, right, is think through all of the stages. What are people going to be doing at each stage? So let's kind of dive into this. So here's the diagram that we looked at before. And let's just take a look at the search pieces and see how we can pull this stuff in. So you want to start out with thinking about, what's the goal of this project. And so that's true whether you're building a website, building a new part of a website, launching a blog, or advertising it at the Super Bowl, right? What is it that you're really trying to do? And a lot of people will say things like, I want to get a lot of traffic or I want to get a lot of YouTube views. But that's not actually the goal, right? The goal is I'm trying to sell cars or I'm trying to raise awareness about this issue or whatever. So you really want to kind of peel it back to the actual goal to make sure that you ultimately get there, even though you may want to have these other metrics in between. You also, of course, want to think a bit about what is your brand objective, right? So as we go through this, you'll see that we'll take a look at things like search volumes, but you don't want to make decisions just based on popularity of a particular topic, right, if it doesn't fit in with the brand perception that you want to portray. And then the third one is can often be the hardest, which is what's your value prop? So what is it that differentiates you from the rest of the market, and why should a user care and want to come to your site versus another site? And so sort of keeping that in mind can help as you go along with this process as well. So then what you want to do, of course, is take a look at who is really that target audience that's out there. And there's this great exercise that you can find in this book called the Essential Persona Life Cycle, which you can see that I have the cover of it here. And this is a book about personas. It's not about search particularly, but there's this idea a lot of you may have done, which is to build ad hoc personas where even if you don't have the time or money to do a lot of extensive market research and studies, you still probably know a bit about your audience. And so you can do this exercise where you just take a bunch of sticky notes and you write down all of the people and all of the problems that you think. And here's some examples here of what those might look like. And then, you get a bunch of people in a room, you have them all do this brainstorming exercise, and then you can put it on a board like this and start to categorize it into different types of categories. So the great thing about adding search to this process is that even if you don't have a lot of time or money to do extensive market research, you can use the data from search to validate these assumptions that you have, which is what we'll do next. So you kind of end up with this, and you may end up with some that aren't really relevant, because when you do a brainstorming exercise, you're going to end up with stuff all over the place. So you kind of have, okay, these aren't the relevant ones, these are kind of relevant. This is sort of how we've categorized them. And then you kind of go from there, right? So then you're like, okay, we've got all these things. What is it that they're searching for? And this is how you can really validate. And there's lots of tools that you can use, and a lot of this information is free. So in my book, so there's the cover of the new edition of my book, and it has the book basically is all about the things that we're talking about here. And if you go to the website for the book, marketingintheageofgoogle.com, there's a resources page that has links to all of the tools that we're about to talk about, as well as a bunch of other ones. But these are the ones that we're going to be talking about now that I have listed here. All right, so one of them, of course, is Google Insights for search, and what this will help you do, for instance, is figure out comparisons. So, if you're not sure either the way people talk about something or a particular topic, you can do a comparison and see which has the higher search volume. And then you can also, in some instances, see the forecast of what's expected in the future. This could help you, for instance, if you sell snowboards, you can see exactly when the spike of interest is going to hit, later in the year, that type of thing. So this is obviously at the highest level, right, in terms of just figuring out, in this case, this is an example for the Department of Education student loan program. So, what do people search for the most when they're looking for information on financial aid? And with this tool, it will break it out for you. It will show you all of the most popular related searches and rising searches related to the topic that you put in. So this will help you get additional seed information. It'll also show you regional information. So you can see, like in this particular case, you can see that some states there's a lot more interest than others. And then the second screenshot, you can see it down to the metro area. And you can really dive in. This is very useful for local stuff, regional type interest. All right. I threw this next one in here because I find it kind of fun, which is Google and CORRELATE. And it does lots of things. You can upload any set of data and get correlations, search-based correlations. This is showing the easiest one, which is just you put in a query, and it shows you all of the queries that are correlated with that. They may or may not actually be related, right, because correlation, causation, the whole thing. But in this case, you can see that cheap flights is very well correlated with hotels near airport, which makes sense. But you can see exactly the trends and exactly the spike to see just how closely related it is. So there's some interesting things that can be done here. The next two screenshots are meant to bring a little humor to your day. And in this case, I downloaded from U.S. government data state income levels. And so you can do both a positive and negative correlation. So I took a look to see what are the searches most closely correlated with high income states, and then what are the searches most closely related to lower income states. So again, correlation and causation, all of that. So take this with a grain of salt. But these were the two searches that I found most highly correlated with high state income levels, which, okay. And I did this a while ago, so it may have changed. And these are the searches I found most closely correlated with low income levels. So apparently the states where there is lower income people, hopefully they're not angry. but they do like weapons. So, it's just, you can't always say that it's exactly related, but it's just an interesting tool. This is one that's good for competitive research. Google Ad Planner, it's actually intended for people who are placing display ads, but you can use it for competitive research. You can put in a site, and it will give you all of the sites that are related in terms of people who visited this site, also visited this other site, and you can see the queries that people did that led to all of those sites. So you can take a look at all of the competitive sites and kind of see, again, at a high level, what people are searching for. So just to go through a couple more, there's tons of them out there. And like I said, my website has links to all these and more. This is Will Compete. You can, again, get competitive research about what people are searching for. Alexa, same thing. And this is an interesting one, which this takes ISP data that it buys. And for each topic, it will give you the list of questions that people are asking around that topic. So this can not only help you get additional insight to your audience, but if you have a blog or whatever, it can help you come up with topics that are really relevant to your audience. So this one is, again, for the Department of Education. This is all of the questions people are asking around a Pell Grant, right? So, if you're the Department of Education, you might want to take a look at this and make sure that, you're answering all of these questions. So really interesting stuff there. You can, of course, also just look to see what people are discussing online. So one easy way to do this is Google has a discussions tab on the left-hand side. So you just put in your topic and then you click that and can see what people are talking about. So that can be pretty useful. So all of this sort of gives you high-level data, right? And so then where you can really get the detailed data is the Google AdWords, the keyword, the tool. And even though it's under AdWords, again, you don't need to have an AdWords account to use it. It doesn't cost any money. And so there's two things that it will give you I just want to talk about briefly, which you can see here on this screenshot, broad match and exact match. And exact match, if you can see, there's brackets around the word. And so what the difference is here is broad match is going to give you the search volume for any search that had those words in it. Like I think one of these is grants, and so that number would include anything that had the word like Pell Grants, state grants, grants for college, anything that had that word in it is going to be included. Exact match is the number of searches that were done, and this is all over a period of a month, the number of exact searches that were done for that exact query. So if one of these was, like Pell Grant, it would be exactly the number of searches. So this is great because what you do is you just put in a search phrase, a single word or multiple words, and it returns all the list of queries that are related to that. And so this can help you really start to get a sense of the volumes, right? So you can compare, and it also really gives you a sense of everything that people are searching for around a topic. So you basically take this, and you can see there's a lot of information available. The competition information is AdWords, so it's not always going to correlate to organic, but it can give you a general sense. And they've changed the UI a bit from what it looks like here, but you can still get this data. And the global volume is worldwide. Local volume is whatever country you've set it to, in this case, the United States. So you can take this, you can export it into a CSV. So then the hard part, which you want to have interns for, probably, is you want to categorize all of these keywords. So this is an example for a yoga site, and so it's like, okay, this is all the people looking for different types of yoga. These are all the yoga poses, that kind of thing. Here, one example that's interesting is yoga, the DVDs, books, videos. We've categorized all of that in a category called at home, right, which is that, okay, this is someone who doesn't want to go into a yoga studio. What are all the various ways that people do searches for yoga outside of a studio? And so we've put all of that into a cluster. So, this really helps you get these hundreds and hundreds of keywords into something that's much more manageable. So then once you've got these clusters, you might also just kind of want to take a look at, for some of the higher volume ones, what is the competition out there. So this example for Pell Grant, for instance, you can see that the .gov official sites about Pell Grants are here. Wikipedia is here, right? So with these types of results, it may be difficult for a new site to really break in. So it's useful just to take a look at some of these higher volume searches, obviously not every single one, but just kind of the top ones, just to see what's the competition out there. So you kind of want to store that bit of information. Another bit of information is how likely is the searcher to hire you or buy your product, right? So again, this is just sort of data that you're going to throw into the mix. This example is for a DUI lawyer. And what you can see here is that people who are looking for a region, a lawyer-specific type, is probably farther down on the funnel than someone who's just looking for, say, a DUI lawyer, right? If I'm looking for that, it could be anywhere across the country. So if I'm a lawyer in Seattle, only a small subset of that larger search is going to be a qualified audience for me, right? So you want to kind of take a look at how likely is this person really going to be my customer, which you can see a bit more on the next slide. So what you want to do is put all this information and build it into a profile. And so this is an example for a corporate lawyer, right? Maybe someone who helps startups incorporate and file for patents and that type of thing. So I've got these two people, Newsy Nancy and Small Business Sam. And one thing that the Persona Lifecycle book talks about that I mentioned is that you want to give names to these profiles, and you want to, if possible, use alliterative names because it helps you remember them and what kind of a profile they are. And so I've got a couple of little tweets here, and then I've got this clustered search data from the keyword research. And basically what I'm sort of building here from these profiles is Newsy Nancy does has a lot of interest in this topic, but it's all really around, hey, what companies have launched, who's getting acquired, what kind of patents are out there. So if I'm a lawyer who's trying to get people to hire me for that stuff, she probably is not that, right? She's just looking for news and information. So even though her searches are really related to what I'm doing, I probably don't want to target her as a key audience. Sam, on the other hand, is really looking for information on, how do I incorporate, why would I incorporate, how do I file a patent, how much does it cost to file a patent, or those types of things. He probably is a much more targeted audience. So I would probably pick him as my target to start with. So once you've sort of done all of this, this is how you sort of build a strategy around it, right? You determine who's really going to be important. You map all of your clusters of keywords to those sticky notes. Figure out what the priority is. Look at the competition. Look at search volume, right? Do you have a cluster that only 100 people search for a month versus a cluster where 1 million people search a month? I mean, that's obviously going to make a difference too. So then what you end up with is something like this. So this is for the yoga site, Becky Busy, and this all kind of goes back to how you would build any kind of persona. So if you've done any work with that before, this should tie right along in with that. And if you haven't, a book like the Persona Lifecycle can kind of show you how to do that. But this is just sort of a synopsis of Becky. Again, so when you build things, you can kind of think about her specifically. And then how you would pull this into search is, so here's a matrix that can kind of help you think through the process in a more structured way. So we have Becky, the tasks that she wants to accomplish, or this first column, that kind of goes back to those sticky notes. The second column are the queries. So those are the clusters of keywords that we associated with the sticky notes. The third column then is how can we help her solve her problem. And so that's when you really just want to focus on, like, what's my value prop? What do I have that she really cares about? The fourth thing then is, what else do we have to offer her? So there may be other things that she would want that solve her problem or solve a problem that she hasn't asked for, right? So sort of what's that next level of thing that you have? And then, what's your goal? What's the goal that you have that really aligns with her and with that particular task? Because all of your goals and all of your conversion events aren't going to tie to every single person in your audience, right? And so this kind of helps you figure that out. And then what's going to motivate her based on her task to convert? And again, those conversions, those motivators are not always going to be the same for every person and for every task. And then you can figure out how it is that you track those things. So, just a really quick example here with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's page, which I believe has been updated now, on global warming. So if you take a look at the left-hand screenshot, these are all the things people are searching for related to global warming. And if you look at their homepage, here are all the questions that they're answering about global warming. So you can see that these things don't really sync up. And this seems really obvious, but a lot of times that's all it really takes is a quick kind of step outside to evaluate things objectively to make sure that everything is aligned. So we'll just sort of quickly go through what you then would do with this information. So here we have Becky. Each of these rows here would correspond to a row in that matrix that we just looked at. And so you would say, okay, so for this task, if you have a site already, what are the pages on my site that would map to this? And so you've got three possibilities that I'm showing here. One is you may have multiple pages that map. You may have one page that maps, and you might have no pages that map, right? So if you have multiple ones, you need to figure out, do I need to consolidate these pages? Do I need to differentiate them more so that they don't all solve the same task? If there's only one, that's great, but you just want to walk through every step of the matrix to make sure that that everything's there. And if there isn't a page, then you might have to build one. And this is just sort of showing that process all the way through for a site, which I'm going to skip through so I can show you just a couple more things so that we can get to questions. So a few things to think about as you're doing this. One is that the workflow starts at the search box. So when you're thinking about that workflow or your UX, it doesn't really start at your home page. It starts at the search box, right? So here, this is just a heat map, right, that shows where people's eyes look in search results, and they're looking at the left-hand side. So going back to the clusters of keyword research, you'd want to look at that higher volume term that's mapping to the cluster, which in turn maps to a single page, and you want to make sure that whatever that highest volume term is within the left-hand side of your title tag. Very, very easy, but tends to make all the difference in the world. So you can see an example here for Seattle DUI attorneys. If you look at where people's eyes are looking, it's really the second result that's probably going to get people's attention. So very simple thing, but can really make a difference. Here's just an example. It's not just in search, right? So this is news results, and this screenshot on the right, for instance, says, it's over, what have we learned? This is on the Google News page. Well, I have no idea what that article is about, right? So I'm unlikely to click that. So this can help you in a lot of areas. Once someone clicks the search result and lands on your page, they sort of make a decision in evaluating that page very quickly. So they're not going to stay on the page and hunt to make sure that it has what they want. If it's not obvious, if the heading doesn't, pop out at them, they're probably going to click the back button. So here's an example of this. You can see that the search result, because of the title tag, just says sites and attractions. So you don't know what sites and attractions or where the sites and attractions are. And even if you click to the site, you see the country, but the heading still just says new sites and attractions. I might click the back button. I actually did click the back button because I'm doing some research and going to France. So it's like I don't have time to look over this and try to figure out where it's actually talking about. And here's another example just in terms of solving the searcher's problem. We'll just go through quickly. this was when I was trying to go to Morocco last year, trying to figure out where to go. I wanted to know where this resort was. So this is the page. I'm taking a look at the site. I click location. I can see where it is. This is what it gives me. It's in Morocco. And I'm like, okay, great. So then I click the Getting There link, which is way down at the bottom, and it gives me this. Right? So this is an example where they've spent all this money on this beautiful site, but they've forgot to take a step back to think about what problem is the audience trying to solve, and then am I easily helping them solve that problem or introducing a lot of friction? So don't do this. And then, of course, what that leads to is people might land on any page from search, right? They're not going to necessarily land on your home page. And here's just a quick example of that. So, again, I'm doing research into going to France. I found this B&B I thought I might want to stay at. I did a Google image search for rooms to see what they look like. Great. That led me to their site, which led me to this page, which does not have an obvious call to action in terms of how to actually book. So this is the rooms page. I go to the rates page, still nothing. I have to know to click that home page link, which I might not do. That's the only page that has the information, right? So they're not thinking I'm going to start at any other page other than the home page. So just kind of walk through that entire thing. So it just kind of shows that again. In terms of really stepping through, are you solving their problem, but then also are you compelling them to convert? And here's just a quick example of one that I think did well. So I said planning a vacation to Nice. This example search result has that in the title tag. I land on the page. You can see that I've called out then the heading, which is really obvious, the content, which obviously solves my problem, and then they have this large call to action to actually book a hotel. So it went through every step of the process for me in a really nice and useful way. So think about these things as you design your pages, right? What's the goal of the page? Does it work well as the entry of the site? Does it clearly help someone accomplish their task based on that matrix? And does it obviously compel conversion? And with that, just always remember that when you're thinking about search engine optimization, it really is what you provide as the user experience. And I think now we have about 15 minutes left for questions. So should we get started on that?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for a great webcast. We do have several questions that have come in. If you can click on that Q&A tab, they're all listed right there for you.
Great. All right. Let us dive in. Okay. While personas make things more memorable, couldn't sheer mapping of search terms and related search terms be used to target an audience instead of creating a possibly misleading persona? So certainly you can sort of skip just to that in terms of mapping the cluster of searches to a particular page or to a particular task. What's nice about putting it into the persona framework is that it's difficult to build a workflow or content for everybody. And so by targeting it towards a persona, you can much better get a sense of, okay, this person is busy, right? They're trying to research a vacation, but they don't have a lot of time. They need a lot of comparison options. Or this person is a browser, and they really, aren't sure where they want to go, and so they do have a lot of time to sort of spend exploring, looking at photos, and so they really need, a lot of pictures, and they need to be pretty. And so I have talked to people before that are hesitant to use personas because they fear that they'll be misleading, right? Maybe we'll pick the wrong persona. Maybe we'll be targeting the wrong people. But honestly, I don't know that that should be as much of a concern. I mean, you have the data from search that ensures that you're targeting the right kinds of topics and the right kinds of terms, and you're unlikely to pick a wildly wrong persona, right? If it's your business and you sort of have worked with your audience for a while, particularly if you're incorporating all of the other data, from market research, paid search, email campaigns, you should have a pretty good sense of them. And by building towards a single entity or a single audience type, you are less likely to build for everyone, which means you don't carry a workflow all the way from beginning to end, right? When you're trying to help too many people at once, you often don't really have a coherent experience for anyone, whereas if you build a coherent experience for that single, persona, probably anybody can walk through that entire workflow. But if you're like at one point, we need to build this in a quick way because a lot of people are going to be in a hurry. We need to build this in a browsable way because people might want a lot of pictures, and you try to sort of just cram all of that into a single experience. It doesn't become sort of useful for anyone. But if you target these particular personas and make sure that it works from beginning to end, then anyone can pretty much get through the process. I don't think it's critical, but I do think that it can be very useful, and just in terms of being able to consolidate all the pieces of data from all the different areas into that single memorable persona. The profile is a cool idea, but I question the validity of sample search queries. We're guessing at what Becky Busy would search for. So that is part of it, which is that you can never know for sure, but by looking at the queries, so say that the yoga example, right? If you put the word yoga into the keywords tool, it is going to give you, it's not just the sample of search queries. That's just what we put in the matrix. We just had a few samples, which then would link back to the Excel spreadsheet with all of the details. That really is specifically what people are searching for around yoga, and so you can be pretty confident that you're not going to be missing anything huge because it is going to be, sorted from higher volume to lower volume, what people are searching for related to yoga. Certainly, I think with experience, you get more nuanced about the seed inputs that you put in order to get the output of all the queries. And that's part of why you do the research at the beginning in terms of using the trends tool or the insights, to compare, you can make sure that you're starting with a seed set that's probably fairly representative, but you kind of start there and then get the samples. But honestly, I think any kind of audience analysis, market research, product development, you're always a little bit guessing. The great thing with search is that, particularly if it's content, you can take a look at, you can do the same thing with your analytics in terms of clustering your keywords. This is what we do with the reporting that we offer at our company, is that we map those same clusters to the reporting side. So you can see, for instance, if you decided to do a yoga at home category and that was to target people searching for DVDs, videos, and books, you would put that into a cluster, look at your analytics, and you could see, first of all, are we getting a lot of traffic to this category? But also, what is the bounce rate? Are people staying on this page? Is it helping them or not? And are they converting? If what we want to do is get people to register for our program that enables them to watch videos of yoga online, people who are searching for that cluster, are they actually following that through or not? And so it's nice. You can kind of do this real-time adjustment where you have these clusters and you go, hey, this one isn't working. Either we're not really solving their problem like we thought, or this really isn't the right target audience. And so you can kind of make those adjustments as you go along. Okay. This is an interesting question because it kind of goes beyond what we're talking about and into more general SEO stuff. Is it possible to generate good page rank without use of paid ads? I've heard you have to do both. So page rank at this point is kind of a shorthand for all of the different signals that a search engine might use to figure out what to rank well on the non-paid side of things. So paid search is completely independent of that. Nothing that happens in paid search influences the unpaid results. So, for instance, buying ads is not going to increase your page rank. What is the case, and I do talk about the studies of this in the book a little bit, is that two things happen in terms of the synergy between paid search and unpaid search. One is that if your brand appears on both the paid side and the unpaid side, then subconsciously it can cause a searcher to find your brand more credible, and so they might be slightly more likely to click on either of the results if they see it in both places. And the other is just that if you're not ranking organically for, say, general terms. So like one of the examples that I use in the book is about people doing research around cars. So let's say that you're Honda and someone's doing research type searches for like safe cars, cars that fit a car seat, all these types of things. And let's say you don't rank organically and on the non-paid side because, just because you haven't built up that content yet or whatever. So you might want to do a paid search ad, because what people will do, right, is that they sort of, as they do their research and get further down the funnel, is they start to do more specific searches. And so when they're doing, say, safe cars, whatever brands show up for them are the ones that are included in their selection set. And so if when someone's doing that search for safe cars, they don't see Honda and on either the paid or unpaid, then Honda might sort of drop off their list. And so then later they might do, branded searches, and if Honda had a paid search ad, then later that person might do a Honda search, and then the organic ranking would show up, right? And so those are sort of some of the ways that paid and unpaid search might relate to each other, but buying ads doesn't help your rankings at all. This one's fun. Regarding the GoDaddy, the QR code, people have video recorders, so you can always rewind live TV. You can rewind live TV, but my guess is that a lot of people didn't necessarily do that, right? They didn't go, oh, that was a QR code, let me pause it and see what it does. I mean, some people might have just for the novelty factor, but we're busy people, and we don't generally care about advertisers, right? We care about ourselves, and so that's an interesting one. All right, let's see. How much does posting content every day in your area of expertise impact your website's page rank visibility if the site page account are linked or associated? So it sounds like maybe this is Google Plus, a Google Plus question. So first of all, posting more content, whether on your site or not on your site, doesn't in and of itself do anything for your page rank or other value signals or visibility. I mean, it can in that if you create more content and so therefore more people are linking to your site, that can be seen as a positive signal. And if you're creating more content about different topics, then you could obviously get more visibility just because your topic range is broader. But what I see people often doing is just, say they have one topic area, they think that if they just publish more and more and more pages about that single topic area, that just the fact that it's new content will make a difference. But since that type of a strategy doesn't get you more links and also doesn't expand your topic focus, it really doesn't help. With Google Plus, there's this thing, this rel author thing where you can associate your Google Plus account with your website so that Google can see that the two are linked. And this can help you in a couple of ways. One is that is your picture and some other information about you will show up next to anytime your articles on your site rank, your Google Plus profile information will show up. And there'll be things like links like see more articles by this author. And just by having your picture, it can make the result look more credible and stand out more, and so people might click on it. So again, it's not going to change anything in terms of your PageRank, but it still is a good idea because it can really, I think, help the click-through and the engagement. And I also think that, Google's really been trying to do better with authorship and figuring out the original source of things. And so, I think they're going to keep doing things down the road. How do you see search within social media impacting the importance of traditional search, such as the rumored Facebook search? So I didn't have time to include information about social in here, but that certainly is one of the ways where the lines are being very blurred and things are being incorporated. And so the more that you can engage with social media, the more it does help your organic search, right? Because things like likes to your page, the plus ones, that type of thing is going to show up in search. If someone's logged in, obviously the Google search plus your world means that you're going to see results that people in your social networks have shared that wouldn't otherwise be ranking. Bing and Facebook, right, are doing a lot of collaboration. You're seeing Facebook stuff show up in Bing search results if you're logged in. You're seeing Bing search results in Facebook search. So that definitely is going to rise in importance. Really think about sort of how all of those things integrate. With that, I think that we are out of time. Thanks for your great questions, and thanks everyone for attending.